Hello, welcome to another TouchyGooners podcast. It's your boy DanKoogs on hosting duty this week. It's been, and what a week it has been, it's been a fantastic week football-wise for the podcast and for Arsenal fans everywhere, This week we've got Shabs joining me. How you doing, Shabs?
U2B, U2B up. Gooner. That's my mood. I'm good. Yeah. I'm good. I'm still jubilated.
Yeah, the mood and spirits are high, and we've got a very special guest on, friend of the podcast. I'm a very big fan of all the content that he puts out and have been for a number of years. I remember when I was at uni, every single day loading up the daily articles that you put out. So I'm very glad to have you on the pod again, Pedro, aka LeGrove. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I love the work that you guys do. It's brilliant stuff, thought-provoking. Really glad to be on the show.
Okay, thanks a lot. And before we get into it, just some minor housekeeping. Guys, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, listening on Spotify, you leave a like, you leave a 5-star review, you leave some comments, and let everyone know and share that with your friends. Let everyone know that TouchyGooners and the Touchline Fracas guys are where to get your football content, other than obviously LeGrove and the great content that he puts out as well. And we have another match this Sunday for the Touchline Fives, right? So TouchyGooners currently top of the league, unbeaten, going for an invincible season. So if you do want to come down and play alongside us, represent TouchyGooners, make sure you drop us a DM, either to the TouchyGooners or the Touchline Fracas account, and maybe you might just pick up a golden trophy at the end of the season. But let's get into it, man. Let's talk some football. This has been a great week for Arsenal. Spurs obviously dropping some points in the top 4 race against Brentford. Beat Chelsea away at Stamford Bridge. And then, it was in the end a comfortable victory against Man United, beating them 3-1 and essentially knocking them out of the top 4 race. So, Pete, I'll start with you, and it'll be good just to hear your general thoughts on this week, the 2 matches that we've played, and how that's left you, sort of feeling coming into these final 5 games of the season.
Yeah, I'm over the moon. I'm over the moon. I think that the reaction to the 3 games that we lost was maybe a little bit too extreme, and I think people watch those games through an emotional lens because we're all fans. But we were really unlucky in those 3 games, and we weren't playing particularly poorly. There was a lot of bad luck. The XG played that out, but I wasn't expecting to beat Chelsea. I thought we might get a point. I wasn't expecting to beat United. I thought maybe we'll get away with a point and sort of be hovering around Spurs heading into that final game. But to play the way that we did against Chelsea was just exceptional. I don't think enough is made of the fact that, we're missing both of our fullbacks, missing our best central midfielder. We rolled with Eddie, who, and I've been a big fan of Eddie and having him in the side for a long time. But let's not pretend that was expected, that he was going to come out and do that. So we beat Chelsea, and then we go into that United game. And I actually felt the United game was a massive banana skin opportunity. Everybody says they're terrible, but they've got so much individual talent. And Ronaldo was sensational. You could see the nerves in the system, and we just battled through it. The criticism of Arteta, particularly with the 3 games that we lost, is it's sometimes a bit overly structured. It doesn't feel like we really have a 5th gear. We've kind of got like a 3.5 gear, if you know what I mean. There's a certain way that we play and we stick to it, but it was all guns blazing. It felt like a Man United game of old. And then to talk about Spurs in the same breath, so much is being made of the Antonio Conte setup that he's got there. He has been lucky this season. Their third top goal scorer is own goal. The football has been absolutely dreadful all season. But when you expect Conte to come out the blocks and really put in a run, he registers 0 shots on target against Brentford and Brighton. And what does that tell you? The Premier League is really, really, really difficult. And what Arsenal are doing at the moment is absolutely phenomenal with a team that young. So I'm over the moon. We've still got 5 games to go. There are still going to be twists and turns, but like, my God, does it feel good to be competing at this stage of the season, even if it isn't for a proper trophy? You know, it's sign of the times.
Yeah. Some really, really good points that you made there, man. And I think it's very important to note that that Conte point as well is that, you know, Spurs, they have essentially 2 main weapons. You know, maybe 2.5 if you want to add Kulusevski into there, because he's done all right since he's come in January. But what I've liked about the past 2 Spurs games is that, you know, they've respected those weapons and basically said, you know, we're not going to allow Harry Kane the time and space to turn and pick passes and play it in behind. We're actually going to have a game plan set up to prevent, you know, your main weapons working. And it seems, you know, for the past couple of games at least, that Conte hasn't really had an answer to that. So I think that would definitely be an interesting one to watch in these final 5 games, to see how some of these teams set up against them. Because, you know, I think in 2022, I've been really disappointed with the game plans that teams have rolled up to Spurs with, you know, Newcastle, when they, you know, open the backsides and concede 5 in the second half. Aston Villa concede 4 in the second half, and it seems clear to me that stop Harry Kane and you stop Spurs. And I just hope that more teams take note of that, and, you know, maybe fingers crossed that race for top 4 might be over before we even get to play them. I'd love it if we only needed a draw or something like that from that game. But, you know, Shabs, what's your thoughts, man? You said you're feeling jubilant, you know. So let's hear that in some words.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we can go back about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago now, where we done some predictions and forecasts. I was told I was overly positive, you know, talking about 75 hours. I was, you know, I was kind of going through game by game. And, you know, people don't see or hear the breakdown. People only see the screenshot of what we projected. But from I was actually negative about the 2 games. And I felt that United would somehow just be lucky. I didn't think they'd outplay us. I don't think they're a particularly good side at the moment. But I thought, you know, Ronaldo would be a factor in the game, or more of a factor than he is. And I think, you know, he was you know, a bright spark for them, definitely in the first half, I think, and I think we respected him a lot. I think for the Chelsea game, I felt that we could pick up a point away. So, you know, we actually exceeded my expectations. We got 6 from 6 points rather than the 1 that I projected. And yeah, I'm up. And yeah, that mood is carried all from last week to now. Pedro, I think you made a fantastic point, actually, and I think this hasn't been emphasized enough, actually, because as well as we played, as much as we won, we done it with key players missing. You know, I think if we're talking about Tomiyasu, and it's great that he came back into the side, but really we've done a lot of this without Tomiyasu. We know how sturdy he's been. He adds a lot of solidity to our back line. He's been reliable and quite consistent throughout the season. Tierney, we know how important Tierney is to us. If nothing, and I don't think Tierney's been at his best this season either. I think we've seen Tierney play a lot better. But I think you look at the gulf in quality between him and Tavares. And I say we're quite lucky in terms of the performance of Tavares and Cedric, especially against United, more so against United than the Chelsea game. Because I think Tavares, I'm a cool customer. I don't really get nervous watching us. I think, you know, I kind of get behind us. But that game was a tense game. And I think Tavares definitely contributed to tense moments in that game. And in different circumstances, I don't think we would have been as fortunate. You know, I think at times it actively looked like he was playing against us. So, you know, I think we've got the wins over those sides. Without those guys, we've also done it without Partey in the middle. And I think Partey, for the most part of this season, when we have been good and when we've looked sturdy in the middle of the park, both in terms of defensive cover, but also a base from which to build from in the middle of the park. Partey and Xhaka, we're going to give Xhaka some flowers, but Partey and Xhaka have been at the centre of that. And we didn't miss him, basically, in those games. And so, yeah, I think that's a really important point that you made, and I agree. It's not a point that I've touched on in anything that I've said post-win. I've just been gloating. But yeah, that was really impressive. I do feel that we respected Ronaldo a great deal, especially in the first half. I feel that, you know, there was a moment in the first half where it was Gabriel and Ronaldo. It looked like, you know, there was a bit of a 50-50, which I think Gab maybe could have gone in for. They kind of pulled out, slowed down, allowed Ronaldo to get to the ball and just kind of carried it past him. I think there was just a lot of respect there. And it bothered me a little bit. I thought, actually, we needed, I came on and said we needed to respect the game, we needed to respect the opponents, but not too much. But I think it wasn't a factor in the end. And yeah, I think there were notable performances from loads of our players. They stood up, they made sure that they were counted. I think that Saka was phenomenal again. I think Odegaard was phenomenal, like just, you know, absolutely sensational in terms of the spaces that he was picking up and the passes that he was making. In both games, I thought he was an outlet in the game against Chelsea, but especially in the United game. Like, you know, whenever we were under pressure or trying to build or play out from the back, he was finding these spaces in the middle third, out of the cover shadow, and he was just open and available to receive the pass, and he knew what he wanted to do when he got it, and it was always progressive and it was always forward, and it was brilliant. And I think, you know, that helped us out in a big way as well.
Yeah, thank you, Shabs. Thank you, Shabs. And something that wasn't really on the agenda, but it's just popped into my head based on a couple of things that you've said there is, you know, the fullback positions, right? So I do want to talk about some individual performances in this Manchester United game. And the first time I was at the ground, I linked up with one of our long-time listeners, Harry, to have a couple of pre-match gin and slimline tonics, you know, watching the weight, and so and then a couple of more drinks at the ground, and so my nerves were shot watching this match, right? And I felt very, very nervous the whole way through. It felt that, you know, every time United went forward, they were going to score, etc. And I didn't think that we were that comfortable. But, you know, the next day, Sunday afternoon, I watched their game again, knowing the result, without the emotion. And I actually thought we looked much, much better on the rewatch. I think in the first half, we played some really, really good football. And obviously there's that clip of, you know, 32 passes or something that went round before we scored. We won the penalty for our second goal. And the only thing in that first half, I actually thought Tavares was okay in that first half. But it was mainly Cedric for me that was, you know, the big sort of nervous wreck playing right back. I think he put Ramsdale under pressure a couple of times, lost the ball trying to pass it up the line. And then basically and then in the second half, the first 10 minutes, United couldn't touch the ball. And then they get a corner, and then Tavares gives away that penalty. And then from 55 minutes until Xhaka's goal, Tavares was a nervous wreck then, and he couldn't keep the ball, kept losing it, this, that, and the other, and people were talking about hooking him, this, that, and the other. But then after we scored, he then settled down again. I think we brought Martinelli on just before the goal, and that helped out on this side. So, you know, one question that I have for the pair of you is, so Tomiyasu came back. Hopefully, you know, he played 10 minutes, I think. And hopefully he's fit enough to now start our next game with another week's training under his belt. What would you guys do at fullback? Would you just play Tomiyasu and then keep Tavares at left back, or would you consider putting Cedric on that left side? Because I know what I would do, but which I think is to play Tavares. But I think it'd be interesting to hear your takes on that. And I'll start with you, Pedro.
I'm in agreement with you, Dan, on Cedric in the first half. He was getting roasted by Sancho. He couldn't hack the pace. He lost his confidence. He stopped playing vertically. And that penalty shout, I don't know how the rules say that you can fall down and swipe the ball with your hand, and that's using your hand to support your body. It's an insane rule, but we got away with it. I think for the West Ham game, you've got to stick with Nuno. I don't think Cedric is that much better. Even a right back, he's still, I know he's a bit more seasoned, but West Ham are not coming to play at the weekend, and I think some of the chaos that Nuno brings to the attack could be really beneficial. And maybe after the United game, Tavares would have learned a little bit, keep those shots down. Can't take a beat before you pick out a final pass. Like, he's got some real tools in his arsenal. I mean, if you could sort of constrain he's like, people with ADHD see the world a little bit faster, and that's Tavares. He gets so excited he forgets what's going on with the ball. But if he just took a beat, there were some real good moments. You watch the game. I didn't watch the game back, but he got into some really, really good positions. Just with a little bit of calmness, he could be quite a producer of end product, I think.
But I think he always does. I think he always does get into promising positions, and he gets quite high up the pitch, and he gets further forward. It's his use of the ball and the decisions that he makes when he is in those positions, and that's the kind of thing for me. And I think you have to kind of accept both parts with him, because if he's not daring and if he's not adventurous, then we don't get that first goal. In my view, he never ventures that further forward. He practically hit the back stick to knock in a rebound from a Saka shot. In an open play situation. And as much as I love Tierney, and I think definitely is our first choice left back, and so he should be. I don't see Tierney, and Tierney has got some goals for us and scored some good goals, but I can't see a situation where Tierney will be in that position ready to kind of slap it in at the back stick. So I accept it.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point around sort of his natural attributes and the things that he is good at. Because we love an FBref bar chart on this podcast, right? And if you see the things that Tavares is good at, he's really, really good at. We're talking 90th percentiles for progressive carries and dribbles, and XG and expected assists and all this stuff, which is what you associate with a top modern fullback. And I think if you're comparing the two of them, so Tavares versus Cedric, you actually back Tavares more to win his duels because of his height, his physical qualities, and Elanga is a very, very quick player. Very, very quick player. And I think if we're looking at what Sancho was doing to Cedric in that game, I struggle to think at what Elanga would have done to Cedric on that side if he had the same opportunities to run him behind. So and I think another factor that we have to take into consideration is that Tavares has never really played a full season starting as a left back. So a lot of these things that are to do with composure, you'd expect him to calm down the more he plays and the more first team football that he plays. Because I think he actually had our best chance of the second half, where he gets it high up, cuts inside, and then right foot blazed it into row Z, right? But if he gets into that situation again in the next match, who knows? Maybe that's a bit. He does have a bit more composure there, can pick a corner because he is quite good off either foot. So we've invested in him, and he was brought in to be the backup left back for Tierney. And I think we need to persist with him being the backup left back for Tierney and keep it there. But I just thought it was a point of discussion, because they were sort of, I think, the two major question marks in this game against United. So that's that. But Shabs, you mentioned Saka, right? So I posted a stat in the WhatsApp group today that says the most shots from open play in the Premier League, Saka's number 2 in the Premier League, just behind Mo Salah, ahead of Ronaldo, ahead of Mane, ahead of Jota, and all these other guys who are way up there in terms of goals and numbers, right? We've seen it in the past 2 games. He's won 2 penalties and he grabbed the ball for both the penalties. You see McTominay trying to put him off, slapping the ball out of his hands, and all of this. And I went on the main pod and I said that I can see a real mentality shift in this guy, that he wants to be the main man, right? So Pete, you mentioned as well in his 3 games that we lost. I think especially the Southampton game, you could see that this guy He wanted to score. He was taking all the shots, doing all of the crosses. I remember against Wolves when we came back, the equalising, the winning goal that we score is from a drive and run from Saka, cuts inside onto his right foot, takes a shot, and is parried out wide. And then, the rest is history. And it seems to me that this guy, he really, really, really wants to be the main man for Arsenal. And that's why I think he's going straight to the top. I think his mentality is just so elite that he wants the responsibility. And I think it's the example is there in the penalties. The manager said it. Martinelli was supposed to take it, but he said no. Boom. We're at Stamford Bridge. This is my chance to redeem myself from my penalty miss before, and I'm gonna put us 4-2 up. And he went and did it. So Pete, how high is this guy's ceiling, and how impressed are you with Saka right now?
I'm blown away. I'm blown away by that statistic as well. Second most shots in the Premier League. I mean, that's incredible. We haven't had. I'm just guessing if I go back to last time we've had that in the Premier League, but the shots for the whole team have gone up. You remember when Arteta first came in, we were averaging 9 shots per game. This season, we're averaging 15.5 shots per game. That's the third highest in the Premier League. 5 shots on target per game. That's joint 4th in the Premier League. So whilst we might not be creating big chances, we've got Saka, who's in the top 5 for chances created, 2nd for shots taken, 20 years old. 20 years old. I think Salah was still in Egypt when he was 20 years old, just about to go to Switzerland. I think Mane had played 22 games in France, and Saka's in the most competitive league in the world doing this. Like he has Mo Salah levels. Let's not kid ourselves. He can go right the way to the top. I think he's got the right coach to help develop him. Like, I'm so excited. But to your point, Shab, the thing that I love about it's the leadership. It's the leadership. He's never looked soft, but he's always looked he's a humble guy, right? He's very humble. He's God-fearing, humble player. Now he's stepping up and he's a man, and he's not being bullied. And it's just so exciting to watch. And then you think, we've got other players that are doing that, and they're all kids. The average age of the Manchester City squad is 27, and he's 20. He's got 7 seasons to get to peak level of Manchester City. I just can't imagine where he's going to take his game. And he's so focused, never gets in any trouble. I'm absolutely loving it at the moment. And I think he's got more goals and assists than Mane this season. Maybe more goals and assists than Kevin De Bruyne. Like, he's delivering the numbers.
Delicious.
The numbers. And here's the thing. He doesn't have a striker in the team at the moment. He doesn't even have a striker to aim for. Imagine what's going to happen when you put... I don't think it's going to be a Jesus, but you put a tall striker in there that he can aim for, an Osherman or whoever comes in. I mean, like, we really are going to be a top 4 team next year if we get those vital positions secured in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Shabs, anything you want to add on the young man?
Of course, how can I not? This is my favorite. This is God's child. This is my boy. This is the star boy. But I think we know what happened last summer. We know what he was subjected to unreasonably, on social media and the reaction. We know how the club welcomed him back with open arms. There's a bit of criticism as well at the start of the season that he started slow, blah, 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 all of this stuff. We know how he's bounced back. We know how he's bounced back from all of that. Yeah. We've seen it. We've seen pivotal moments throughout this season where we've seen his character, and we're seeing it more and more lately. You've referenced the drive in the Wolves game. Pedro, you've referenced some bits and pieces. You've referenced, his mentality on the pitch and that, he's not going to get bullied. We've seen a Villa game, where I think it was a Villa game where he was getting kicked all over the place. What they were doing was assaulting him, and he had to have words with the ref at half time and say, "Oh, ref, like, you need to protect me." That's a leader right there. That's a man saying, "Listen, like, you see what's going on, sort this out." He's got that mindset now where he's starting to say, "Yo, I'm not gonna. I'm a footballer and I'm here and I'm, look after me. Don't let this stuff run." You got to have that to your game as well. We saw with the penalty, you know, and you've already referenced it. You know, Martinelli, that was the first one against Chelsea. We saw the penalty again, the manner in which he took both penalties, but you saw some shithousery from McTominay, slapping the ball out his hands. Didn't rise to it. Yeah, he laughed it off, cool as a cucumber. And what I liked as well, there was a lot of delay in between the foul being committed and the kicks being taken in both instances. Lots of furore, and he just kept his composure both times, and he slotted it one time and he slotted it again the other time. We saw him square up to not square up to Ronaldo like chest to chest, but you know, we saw moments where they're going up against each other and going into duels against each other, and he's coming out on top. This is Ronaldo, you know, peak athlete. Yeah, I see the one on the touchline where the ball come up over, and it was him, Ronaldo, and someone else. And he kind of controlled it with the outside of his foot, brought it back in, went shoulder to shoulder with Ronaldo. I'm sure it was Ronaldo who kind of bounced off the pitch, and he carried the ball inside, got his head up, played it. I'm like, this is beautiful. This is delicious. You know, for a little clip, you cut that up and you put that out there. It's no surprise. It is a surprise to me. I'm keeping it real. It is a surprise to me that he's getting the shots off, that he's getting the most shots off. That tells you again about how he's being coached. That tells you about how he's seeing himself. That tells you about how he's recognizing his role. And I've said this as well. I used to say this last season. I've said this many times this season. I felt like he and Smith Rowe a little bit, but I think it's clear he's a bit further forward than Smith Rowe. In my view, I felt like he was still playing with a handbrake on at times, and there was a bit of a restriction. And now I think that handbrake is off. And I feel like, you know, he's unlocked it and he's realised in his head he's a leader in this team. Forget his age, and he's a leader out there on the pitch. And I think he's just playing like that. And you know, I'm so delighted for the boy. I'm so delighted for him. You know, we have naysayers about Saka all the time, and he just comes out most weeks, regardless of what the team's results are. He comes out most weeks and performs, and I absolutely love him for that. Honestly.
Yeah, thank you, Shabs. Thank you, Shabs. And I guess another player who is right up there in terms of his statistics recently. So, you know, Pete, you mentioned Saka is top 5 for shot creating actions, and another guy who's right up there with him, I think in the top 7, is Martin Odegaard. And he, I think, is second in the league for chances created this season overall, joint with Saka. So he's having a stellar season, had a great game against Man United, created probably our best chance of the whole match with a nice little flicked pass through the Man United defense into Eddie Nketiah's path, and he forced a save from De Gea. So I think Odegaard did an interview this week where he was talking about potentially being the captain and that kind of thing. And it seems that those two have got a fantastic relationship. They seem to be loving playing together, and I think as you mentioned, they're doing all of this without a striker. So it seems to me that the crop of young players that we have right now, they're doing the business, and it's about finding the next piece that can send them up even further. So what's your thoughts on Martin Odegaard's performance, both in that United game and then across the season more generally?
I love Martin Odegaard. I think he was a genius signing last January. I think that maybe Arsenal got a little bit lucky in the sense that I think we went quite hard for Buendia, and Buendia was eventually attracted to Aston Villa because Emi Martinez told him that Arsenal wasn't the place to go. So nice one, Emi Martinez, because we ended up getting the player with the highest ceiling, the player that's a better leader, and the player, he's a player that fans of other clubs are looking at now jealous. They're absolutely jealous because he's hitting the heights that made Madrid sign him at 15 years old. And what I love about him, the best young players to get are those that have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, and not making it at Madrid is a bit of a humiliation. You say goodbye to your family, you fly down to Spain, you're training with Cristiano Ronaldo, Carlo Ancelotti doesn't like you, Zidane doesn't like you. You get sent out on a couple of loans to Heerenveen and Sociedad, and then he gets the love at Arsenal. Arteta recognizes the potential, and he's just owned it this season. I mean, he had a rough first couple of months where he was trying to figure himself out a little bit. But since then, I mean, nobody's talking about the lack of pace anymore. He works harder than almost anyone in the team, and he's got those genius levels of vision. And I think we've seen a few passes that haven't ended in assists, so that you can see where this is going. And again, we've got to remember, Martin Odegaard is playing without a striker. When you put a striker that can run the lines, when you put a striker in the system that can attack the near post with his head, I think you're going to see a lot more assists from him next season. And again, I think he's the sort of player that just wants to focus on his football, learn, and get better and better. I mean, I don't know whether you saw the interview with him the other day, but he's like, there are too many individual things that I'm working on to elevate my game. Too many little details that I can't talk about right now. But he wants to be seen in the same light as Erling Haaland. So I've been really impressed with him, and the way that he led in the Chelsea and the United game was spectacular for me. Like, having so many leaders in the side now, compared to what we've been looking at for the last 5 years, is just magic. And again, he's 23 years old. It's 4 years until he gets to the magic age of 27, where he's hitting peak. So a brilliant signing. 35 million was bargain of the season for me.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And Shabs, anything else? I'll ask you to be brief, because we got lots more to be discussed.
Yeah, no, not that much. It's just the passing. I mean, I agree entirely with Pedro, and the passes that don't come off, but you see the intention, you recognize the intention and the ambition there, and it's he's making passes that you think are actually going to be too difficult to execute. How's he done that there? How's he pulled it off? Right, he just does it, and it was like that. The back heel for, I can't remember whether it was, I think it was the one that Eddie put straight at Nketiah, but there was that pass which was just, it was just coming to him, and he's just played it and run through, and I think it was for that, but just on the edge of the box. But yeah, no, I agree really. I'm not going to say more than that. I just think we're seeing the player, and we have done for a little bit now, that we hoped we would get in Odegaard, and definitely there's a lot more to come from him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this sort of these last couple of games, we've had sort of, I think, two unsung heroes. I think historically is the way of describing them. That's accurate. That were played in the middle of our midfield, right? El Neny. So funny. I think on the day before the Chelsea match, I put out a tweet that says, no, it was on the weekend actually, because it was in relation to Spurs' match against Brighton, where I saw Bissouma pinch the ball from someone in midfield and then flip-flap his way past Harry Kane and another midfielder. And I tweeted, I've just seen Bissouma do something crazy in the centre mid, and the guy that sits behind me at the Emirates has been calling for El Neny to start all year. Jesus wept, right, or something like that, and got all the likes in the world, and then El Neny steps up for Stamford Bridge and Manchester United at home and puts in two absolute classic monster classes for me. He was very, very good against Chelsea, and then doubled down on it with a quality performance again against Man United. So he's got me eating my words. And then the guy next to him in Granit Xhaka put in probably one of the best performances I've seen from him in an Arsenal shirt at Stamford Bridge. He was everywhere in midfield, capped off by nutmegging Marcus Alonso to put us on goal to score our second goal there, and then pops up with yet another long shot against Man United to really just calm the game down and pretty much win us that match against United on the weekend. And I've been very critical of him in years gone by, but I think this season he's really stepped up into that leadership role, and it's not more evident than in these last two games where we're on the back of 3 defeats. We need a result. top four is slowly slipping through our fingers, and he steps up, as Shabs mentioned, in the absence of Partey as well, to really be a leader for us on the pitch. So, the pair of them, I think they're both up for April Player of the Month this year. So this month, sorry. And so, I just think we need to give them some praise, because these past two games, I think they've really stepped up to be sort of the senior players in that team. So, Pete, what are your thoughts on the pair of them together?
So I got a few thoughts on Xhaka and El Neny. The first one's on is about Mikel Arteta. I think that if there is a major criticism of him this season, it's that he's maybe so wrapped up in performance that he's forgot that he's got a whole squad. And when I see El Neny deliver a monster class like he did, all I'm thinking is, why couldn't we have rotated him into a few more games? Why couldn't El Neny play against Crystal Palace after Thomas Partey's come back from putting his home country into the World Cup? But then on the, we can talk about squad rotation later. We're getting through it. The second part is the fact that El Neny will come into the team and he will bleed for the club, despite not playing since December. Tells you about the culture going on behind the scenes. I think when that consultancy came out, the story about the consultancy going in to help Arsenal's corporate culture, everyone thought it was because we lost 3 games in a row. That consultancy will be learning from Arteta, because we've just seen 2 games where after losing 3 on the bounce, those players could have given up, and he's brought in subs and they put in absolute 10 out of 10s. And El Neny does a good job. He runs for the full 90. He doesn't stop. He can execute a very clear tactical plan. And what I loved about both performances is I don't know whether you noticed, there's a lot more verticality in his game all of a sudden. He wasn't playing vertical passes 2 seasons ago, so he actually looked like a better midfielder overall. But I loved that performance. And then on the Granit Xhaka with the leadership thing, I think the reality is he's always been that leader. I just don't think the fans have ever truly appreciated him. And Arteta has done quite a good PR job. He loves Granit Xhaka. I think they call them servers in football. The guys that serve the ball between the lines. And Granit Xhaka does that better than anybody at the club. And I think he's one of the top players in the league for doing that. And we don't really give him credit because it's not spectacular. But he's a really brave player. And he never goes hiding. He's got some dark arts about him. You see him falling on the ball. That's something Sambi Lokonga doesn't do when he's under pressure that he should. But I'm glad that he's getting the credit that he deserves, because we needed him to step up. And he put in 2 incredible games, didn't put a foot wrong. I think he had 96% pass completion against Manchester United. I think El Neny was 88% pass completion rate, which is incredible considering the rustiness. But it's great to have a squad that you can rely on. And what's better is none of us believed it. I didn't believe that we could have Tavares and Cedric with El Neny and Xhaka in midfield and breeze past Chelsea and Man United. So there's lots to learn out of that. And I think that will be Arteta's big takeaway from the end of the season. You've got to trust players, because if you have a squad, you might have to lean into them at some point. So we've gotten away with it on that front, but I love the performance of both of them, and hopefully that pairing can see us through to the end of the season.
Yeah, Shabs, anything that you want to add to that on Xhaka and El Neny?
Yeah, definitely on the point about credit. I think they're due an enormous bit of credit, both of them, really. On the point about Arteta not utilising the squad, again, I agree. I think we've said it. It's in the instance of El Neny. It's been in the instance of other players such as Tavares, such as Eddie Nketiah, and I think now we've Pepe. And I think now we've had to really rely on them, especially down this stretch. And I think although we're impressed with the performances, I think arguably we could have seen this sooner, or we could have seen better from them had they been integrated better and managed better. And I do think it's something that has taken Arteta longer to learn and to kind of get around. And I am still questioning what that's about, why that is. I am going to go the other way though and say, as much as I happy with the performances, and as grateful as I am to them for the way that for the shifts that they have put in, as hopeful as I am that they can help us see this through to the end of the season, I do think we need greater quality in the middle of the park, honestly speaking. And I think El Neny's been at the club for a long time. I think it's fantastic to him that he has been able to come in, having not been used often, and give us this. But I want better options in terms of the quality, and I want it for us and for him as well. And I think with Xhaka as well, I think Xhaka is understated. And I think we've been guilty of giving him a hard time at times as well. But I still think there are options out there which would and could make our midfield stronger. And now's not the time to go into all of that, really. Now's just the time for me to be grateful and appreciative. But I think Xhaka definitely an unsung hero from this season. And he's registered goals against United in the past, and I think we shouldn't really have been. I spoke about one spectacular goal that he scored at the Emirates against United a couple of seasons ago. And that one confused the hell out of Bukayo, and we saw him again true to his form, and he popped up with a goal, and that just really there was such an importance in that goal. Actually, such an importance in that goal for seeing it out, and I think that will be pivotal, not just for us as a team, but for him as well throughout the closing out of this season. So I'm really happy with it, and I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for them both.
Yep. Thanks both. And the final individual performance that I wanted to touch on briefly, just because I think there's been quite a bit of discussion about this player on the TL. So Eddie Nketiah, right? So we put out a tweet that showcased his, senior football statistics, which basically has him scoring a goal pretty much every 160 minutes, 157 minutes, I think it was, in men's football, right? So that's not, that many starts or games in the Premier League, but it's 54 appearances in the Premier League, but only 14 starts of those 54. And then, the majority of his other games and starts have come in the Cups, in the Championship, that kind of thing. And I think in these so he started the last 3 games on the spin. He scored 2 at Stamford Bridge. I thought he was unlucky not to leave with a goal against Man United. I think his movement, his ability to press caused the centre-backs lots of issues throughout this game. And his link-up was very good in both games as well. And there are a few listeners' questions around this. So I'll pose these questions towards you guys. So first question is from Shawnaldo 09, and he says, does Nketiah deserve a chance to take over from Lacazette instead of Arsenal signing a new striker? So what are your thoughts on firstly on Nketiah's performances so far in his last 3 starts, and then answering that question, should we give him a chance instead of signing a new striker? Start with you, Pete.
I saw your Eddie Nketiah propaganda. I loved it. There's a real there's a weird part of our fan base. People don't want him to be good. People don't want to accept. I had it on my own podcast. Johnny Cochran called him League One Eddie, and I speak to people in and around Arsenal, and the view has never been that he is anything other than a Premier League striker. The view is that if he goes, we are going to regret it, because in a couple of seasons, that's a guy that will get 20 goals a season in the Premier League. And we always forget that they're people like us. I mean, you two play football yourselves. If you don't play for 6 months and then you get given 3 minutes in a Sunday league game, you're not going to be at your best. And Eddie Nketiah when we knew that it was Lacazette and Eddie, he should have been given a 5-game run straight away, get some minutes into the system. And I tell you, if we'd given him a 5-game run in January, we wouldn't be talking about our lack of goals from a striker. We wouldn't be talking about a striker that didn't shoot. And he's come into the system. He's an athlete. You know, he's fast, he's strong. He showed us that in pre-season. He was our best striker in pre-season. We forget that. But he's taken his chances as well. And there's no bigger stage than Stamford Bridge away. And I'm so happy for him. And I thought he was brilliant against Manchester United. Got into some good positions, ran the lines well, starting to look a little bit more confident. I wonder whether part of the issue that some people have is he's quite expressionless. And you know, we love passion, and you know that's not Eddie on the pitch, but he's a bit of a silent assassin. And I think Eddie's got to think about his future. There's no club in the Premier League where he's going to walk into a starting 11. Wherever he goes to Crystal Palace, he's competing against two, three other strikers. You know, only club that he might get a starting berth is Brighton. But I don't know whether do you want to do that, or do you want to be competing with another striker at Arsenal in the Champions League next year, where you'll definitely get more games? I think he's got high potential, and I think if Arsenal went out in January and signed the record-breaking England under-21 goal scorer, we'd all pretty happy about that. And at the moment, you've got a whole group of Arsenal fans saying, "Yeah, just let him go on a free. He's not good enough." He could be good enough. He's got a very high ceiling, and I think if we don't keep him, I think we're going to regret it. And I just hope that he can do something against West Ham. You know, if he exits this season with 5 or 6 more goals, I think he's got a difficult decision on his hands, because I know that the club want to keep him. Arteta are obviously coming out and, you know, mea culpa. This is a massive fuck up from me. So hopefully he continues to prove his worth. But I'm really, really impressed with him, and I'm glad that he's given the chance to show Arsenal fans that they've been really wrong on him.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important point that you make there, just about, I guess, the platform that he's had to perform to date. You know, and I think the most disappointing thing about this for me is that, you know, not necessarily that he's leaving, because, you know, players leave, but as a club, you have to also think about, you know, this isn't the best thing for Arsenal either, right? Him leaving for a free. If he goes to, you know, a German team that we know there are lots of them interested in him. I think Gladbach had a bid rejected for him just in January. We're going to get pretty much next to nothing in terms of compensation. I think in England you get, you know, some sort of, compensatory fee for, you know, training him up, etc. But I think the maximum that's ever been given is £8 million, which is basically peanuts. And then you don't get that opportunity to insert a sell-on. You don't get a buyback clause with any of that stuff to make it easier to return to the club if he does become successful. So, you know, I think the way that we've necessarily handled this Eddie situation is not the best. And I think, you know, what do we lose from him staying? You know, if you go out and you sign a top striker and Eddie is a number 2, even if he's not quite at the level, you can then still sell him for a fee. You know, and I think it's a real shame that he's not necessarily been given the opportunity to play 5 games in a row. Maybe not even at Arsenal, but just on loan somewhere. And we really could have put that to the test, because I think right now the disappointing thing for me is that we actually don't know how good or bad Eddie Nketiah is, because he's not had the starts and he's not had the minutes. You know, and I think that's the thing that Arsenal Football Club need to do and need to ensure happens in the future, is that, you know, when we are making these decisions on these players, they've been given sufficient minutes so we can actually evaluate, you know, how good they're going to be playing against Premier League opposition. I think right now it's really up in the air, you know, sort of whether or not Eddie is going to be good enough. Because as you say, you know, we've all watched the same guy. Some people have concluded he's not good enough. Some people have concluded he is. But what I would say is, if you signed it, if you made a new signing, most people give them at least till the second season, you know. And Eddie Nketiah, as we've seen, he's a 14 starts in 5 years since signing his professional contract in the Premier League, 3 starts in the Championship. So, you know, how can we make an assessment on that? And we would never do that for someone that we signed for £50 million, let alone someone who's coming through the academy. So that's just my opinion. So yeah, Shabs, anything to add, and then we can maybe move on to other topics.
Yeah, just that his average goals per minute is the same as Gabriel Jesus. So, and I would take, if you offered me Gab Jesus right now, especially off the back of these performances that he's been putting in, in the last couple of games or whatnot. But even before that, yeah, I'd snatch your hand off. Absolutely, I'd take him in a heartbeat. But I'm just saying, there's a way that we look at one, there's a way that we look at the other. And I'm not saying they're the same player at all, but what we look at with Gab is a player who's, being used in a different way, playing outside of what you might call as his natural position as a centre forward, or, playing wide for Man City, a dominant side and whatnot. And these are the goals that he's scored, and this is the rate at which he's doing that in a very dominant side. And you look at Eddie, who, is being used very sparingly across these 5 years, and you've just run the numbers in terms of how many games, how many starts. And we're saying, actually, given the opportunities, notching at the same rate. So, for Arsenal side who have struggled, we're doing well this season. But yeah, we've struggled for the majority of that 5-year period. So, and I really like the point made, Pedro, by yourself when you said if we went out and signed England's record under 21 goal scorer, what would the fan reaction be? And here we are, we have him. And yeah, there are sections which, are kind of like, no, get rid of him. And that's weird to me. For a player who's not really had a run of games, and this is what he so clearly needed, is a real run of games to really fairly and objectively assess him and his level and his ability. It's not really had that. So, how can we be so definitive and, convinced about what he is? And I hate player projections as well. And I'm going on a bit of a rant now, but yeah, I hate player projections and putting caps on players, and this is all he'll ever be. And I don't like that kind of stuff. Yeah, player development is non-linear. So I think we will regret him going, because I think he has the potential to be, a very, very good finisher in football, if nothing else. And we're starting to see there's more to his game than that, but I think a very, very good finisher, definitely. He's got that. Yeah.
Thank you, Shabs. Thank you, Pete. And so, Pete, now we have you on the pod. I thought it would be a great time to pick your brains about a couple of players. First one being William Saliba, however you want to say it. And so there was a couple of things that came out literally today. One being an exclusive, apparently saying that William Saliba will be here next season. I read it, and I wasn't sure if there was any new information in that exclusive, but it seems that a lot of the, general talk, I guess at the time of the article, was that Saliba would be coming back. He wanted to fight for his place, and the club wanted to use him. And then I think a couple of hours later, Saliba's agent came out and said, we still don't know. We still don't know about what Arsenal want to do with him. Nothing's been decided. We're going to go back. We're going to discuss with the club and then make a decision from there. So it seems that from Saliba's side, it's not quite as definitive. And when I think Arteta's been speaking about Saliba in a few press conferences of late, and he has been, I think, probably a lot more complimentary and a lot more positive about Saliba than he has potentially in previous seasons. So, it'll be good to get your thoughts on that whole situation and whether or not you think he's going to come back and fight for his place at Arsenal, and whether the club are so inclined as to even want him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about Saliba staying at Arsenal 10 days ago, so I'm not sure how exclusive Team Talks is LeGrove got it first. I heard from an Arsenal side source that the intention is to keep Saliba at Arsenal next season. You never know what can happen in football. You never know who's got £50 million to throw at a player that's never played a Premier League minute. But Arsenal have a finite amount of money to spend this summer. We're not old Chelsea when they used to have a sugar daddy. We're not Manchester City. So the idea that we would get rid of Saliba and buy a backup centre-back for the Champions League, it doesn't make sense. This is a guy that's been called up to the France international squad. He's been fit all season. He's got better and better. He's been in God knows how many Player of the Week rosters. And so Arsenal's intention will be to keep him. You remember he's got 2 years left on his deal. His agent needs to shake down Arsenal and get the best possible amount. I think Saliba earns 40 grand a week at the moment. He'll probably be looking for 80, 90, 100K to stay at Arsenal. That's good money to invest. If he leaves this summer and he goes to Germany or wherever he goes, that could be an 80, 90 million pound player in a few years. Arsenal cannot let that happen. From the player perspective, there isn't a better club to be at if you want to play the sort of football it's Manchester City light, but without the average age of Manchester City and the overall quality. And we've seen from Ben White and Gabriel this season, their form has been very up and down. I think if William Saliba, who is an Arsenal fan, I think if he's looking at this Arsenal backline at the moment, I bet he'll fancy himself. I bet he'll think that he can get in ahead of Ben White this season. He's got the exact same profile as Ben White, but he's a little bit taller. So I think it makes sense for his career to stay at Arsenal. I think it makes sense for Arsenal to keep him, but I think there'll be some back and forth. And remember, every time, Saliba's agent knows every time he says something that feels ambiguous, Arsenal fans go crazy and send Edu Instagram DMs. Like they know that. Like everyone thinks that that football clubs don't understand how the media, football clubs and agents don't understand how the media work. It's untrue. They'll be sending little messages to Fabrizio Romano to put pressure on Arsenal. So I think Saliba's done a brilliant job on loan. I think it was the right decision. He's going to come back, having made a lot of mistakes in a pretty chaotic system. So I think it's good news, and I'm calm about it, and I'm really looking forward to having another defender that can play the same way that Gabriel and Ben White can play next season. Because Rob Holding is a difficult one to bring into the system as part of a back four because he just doesn't have that ball playing ability, but William Saliba certainly does, and he could possibly go a level up from Ben White.
Yeah, 100% agreed. 100% agreed, and I just think. The point is it would just seem crazy, I think, to me to have a solution there already ready-made. He's been playing in Europe, and I think we were talking about this in the WhatsApp group earlier, and I think, the soft factor practice that he's had at Marseille, where, he's playing at probably the biggest club in France with a crazy fan base. They've got a European semi-final tomorrow that he's most certainly going to play in. And they're second in the league, I believe, as well. So, if he did go to Newcastle, I know, you'd get used to the physicality, etc., of the Premier League. But, at 21, you're going to have to get used to the physicality, and that will happen at any point down the line. But playing in these intense games against PSG with a maniacal crowd shouting at you, playing the pressure situation, trying to qualify for Champions League at the club, and playing in pressure situation, trying to win a European trophy. I don't think you can put a price or a value on having that kind of experience at 21. And as you said, he's played almost 4,500 minutes this season across all competitions at Marseille, and I think that makes him the under 21 with the most minutes in Europe in the top 5 leagues. So that is all invaluable experience that you can't really put a price on. So it would seem insane to me that Arsenal have done that. It's almost a perfect loan for him if you want him to come back, and then they think about letting him.
If there is one club that we do need to be worried about sniffing around William Saliba this summer, and this is just pure speculation, But Dan Ashworth, the Brighton technical director, is going to Newcastle this summer. And we know that Dan Ashworth likes a ball-playing centre-back. And a 21-year-old William Saliba with 2 years left on his deal, I mean, he could throw more than 80 grand a week at William Saliba. So I'm sure that he'll be keeping an eye on that situation.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely one to watch. So, I want to get into some of the listeners' questions. So, final topic I wanted to talk about was Gabriel Jesus. But essentially, we've had so many listeners' questions that I think it makes sense to sort of amalgamate this final section into listeners' questions. So, there's lots of talk about strikers. So King_Marco, he mentioned, can Laka hit his quota of 5 before the season's up, or has Eddie ousted him? For me, Laka's finished. I hope he's played his last game for the club, as far as I'm concerned. So that's a line drawn under that one. I think Nketiah deserves to start the rest of the games. But questions on striker, right? So we have Jesus for 35 million and DCL for 30 million. Would that be a good striker pairing for next season or not? And that's from Robin Stamford. And then there is another one on striker. Actually, there isn't another one. Oh, I asked the Nketiah one before. So striker situation. Jesus, I've seen some tweets from you, Pete, about Jesus. How would you feel? So here's the other one. Sorry, from Face Off Season. Darwin, Osimhen, or Jesus. So how would you feel about...
Shabs looked like he twitched a little bit when you asked that question. I think he should go in first on this one.
All right, go for it.
No, not even. It was... I'm not a DCL fan. And I think that's what the twitch was about. I was kind of like, maybe there are things that I could like about DCL's game, but generally speaking, I think he's in the profile of striker that we should be looking for in terms of what, like, his stature, his build, some of his physical attributes. But I've been very, very disappointed with his goal return this season, honestly speaking, for DCL. Jesus, no problems with him. Run him over to us. ASAP. Like I said already, I'll take him in a heartbeat. I think he's top quality. I think he's young. He understands the league. He's got so many aspects to his game that are positive and that are lacking. I think, he belongs in a side now where he can be the main man. And I think we need a type of striker as well who can take the game to opponents and create that X factor. I think there's so many times this season where we haven't been able to produce the goods, or we haven't been able to finish, or we haven't made the difference. I think about the Liverpool game, for example, when that was actually a close game, but they beat us 2-0. The difference is, they took their chances and we couldn't. And I felt like if we had a striker, there's a bit of a difference maker in that game. I think it could have been a different game for us. I'm not saying we're ready to compete with the likes of Liverpool more broadly. They're in a different league right now, but I think that's an example of the type of thing I'm talking about with Jesus. So yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm all for it. There's previous with Arteta, it kind of works, and I like that. I think the other part to what you asked, Dan, and the other question, Darwin, Osimhen, or Jesus. I'm still taking Jesus, but I am, and I want it on record, I'm a big Darwin fan, and I think. I think it's unlikely, but I would be very happy with the signing of both of them in the summer. As unlikely as it may be, I think they are. I think they'd have a lot to offer us in terms of some of our striking problems. Like I really, people talk about Darwin's inconsistency. Technically, I really, really like him. I just think there's a lot of room for him, and I think he's problematic and of problems for a lot of defences in the Premier League. And then he's a different option as well in terms of the type of striker than a Gab Jesus. So I'll definitely take him too.
Okay, thank you. And Pete, I guess that last question for you as well. Osimhen, Darwin or Gabriel Jesus? Who are you picking?
What do we know about Arsenal? As pretty much facts. Arsenal were interested in Isak last season. Arsenal bid. We didn't bid. Arteta wanted Tammy Abraham, desperate for him, but we couldn't shift out Lacazette or Aubameyang. January, when people say that we didn't show enough ambition, we went for the most expensive striker in Europe. What do all three of those have in common? They're rangy, they're tall, they're mobile, they can play with their backs to goal, they're bullies. I just don't see Arsenal pivoting that profile. Like, that's a profile that he wants. What are Manchester City doing at the moment, and where do they get struggles? In certain games when they can't break teams down, they've got no height in the box. And they're shifting into, they want a Haaland, they wanted Kane, they wanted Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't see, Arteta will recognize the weaknesses in City's system. So I think the main man is going to be a player in an Osimhen, a Nunez, Dominic Calvert-Lewin profile. Jesus, if you're going to sign him as a wide player or a replacement for Pepe or to play as part of the front three, I kind of understand it. But as a main man, somebody that has underperformed these XG by 20, I just don't see it. I mean, up until last weekend, Lacazette had more Premier League goals than Gabriel Jesus in the most productive, creative machine ever created. And Arsenal fans are like, that's the guy. Like, he's the second guy. Top quality. I'll take him as a second guy. But the main man, I think an Osimhen or a Nunez feels more in line with the sort of profile of player that we've been looking to sign. It's like that sort of specificity. And I also think Gabriel Jesus is playing like a man who wants a new deal at Manchester City, right? He doesn't, like the idea that he'd come to Arsenal and be backup. And why would he do that? He's playing at Manchester City as backup. He's going to come to Arsenal as the main man. So I don't know. I feel like this rumor works for Gabriel as much as it does for Arsenal at the moment. For Arsenal, it says, listen, we're in for top talent. And for Gabriel, we're asking questions of Pep Guardiola, and Pep Guardiola looked really angry when he was asked about it. He was like, no one knows anything about this deal. He said, it's, nothing's been agreed, and I'll talk to the player at the end of the season. And he looked angry. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 2 goals, 11 appearances, always injured. Got a bit of the Hector Bellerins about him with, like the things that he wants to be part of outside the game. I'm not surprised that he's interested in coming to Arsenal. We might pick him up as a secondary striker as a bargain because Everton will hopefully get relegated. But I don't, doesn't have enough goals. Arteta said he wants goals. If the striker doesn't have goals on his resume, I don't want to be going, oh, well, like his XG was good. No, if we're spending 40, 50 million on a striker, I want to see 20 goals on that list. And that's why Darwin's interesting.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting that the Calvert-Lewin one, right? Because I think everyone saw that thread on Twitter that was, all the strikers that have got, not even strikers, all the players that have got better non-penalty goals to minute ratio this season than Lacazette. And Calvert-Lewin wasn't on that 102 player list that included, the likes of Antonio Rudiger and Christian Pulisic and some of these other sort of underwhelming players this season and players who were playing at centre back and beyond. So, I do think that Calvert-Lewin is probably lacking number one in the goals, and then number two in the sort of the technical ability that we might want from a striker. So I wouldn't be particularly interested in him, even at a bargain price personally. And then I do like Osimhen. He's from the same place as me in Nigeria. So, that's always a big bonus to see a Nigerian local lad playing in an Arsenal jersey. So I would never, ever say no to that. And Darwin, I think I saw a scouting video of his on Arsenal Vision podcast. And, I'm sort of caught in two minds on him, really. I think he carries what can only be described as major threat, which is one of the reasons why I like Martinelli quite a lot, is that, football's about scoring goals, it's about creating danger and creating chaos. And, when you are up against a defender, a lot of the thing that comes up quite often is, who would be worried about playing against Alexander Lacazette? Not many. He seems very easy to defend against, right? And I think Nunez, for his potential technical limitations, he's always a handful, right? And we've seen
The
this
ice
season.
is melt. The
Huh?
ice is
And we've seen this season. When he gets in the box, that he is a bit of a clinical finisher as well. So, I think right now what we're lacking in centre forward is a big threat. Someone that occupies centre backs and gives more space to the likes of Martinelli, to ESR, to Saka, to Odegaard. And so, I don't think you can say no to a striker like that. So maybe Nunez wouldn't necessarily be my top choice, but I can definitely see the positives that he brings to the table, right? So this is an interesting question from Tommy Ajayi one, and he says, if you could bring one Arsenal player from the Emirates era back into this side for the next 5 years, who would it be? That's a good question.
A fully fit player. Like he's fit for 5 years.
And then you're going to get their prime for the next 5 years.
Oh, I know it's unpopular to say, but Robin van Persie.
Yeah.
Imagine Robin van Persie in this team. It would be just incredible.
Yeah, it'd be absolutely nuts. I think the combination, the dropping in. He's I think in the last 10 years he's probably the best sort of I guess like false nine-ish striker that we've seen. And I think Benzema's doing a very, very good job at the moment. But peak Van Persie is right up there in terms of a guy that could come in, drop in, create, make his own goals, create for others, and score absolute bangers. So yeah, he'd be my pick as well. So Shabs, your thoughts on that one? A different answer?
No, it's the same. And I hate this question because on the main pod the other day we touched on it, and that betrayal is strong. But yeah, honestly speaking, peak Van Persie, this team doesn't look backward.
Yeah.
I hate to, everything for the Emirates area is kind of unpopular because it wasn't great, but Olivier Giroud is leading Milan to a title charge. Ivan Gazidis, the rebirth.
Yeah,
Olivier Giroud 27-year-old Olivier Giroud in this Arsenal side would bang. He would be that's kind of what, if we could find Olivier Giroud with pace this summer, like we are cooking next season.
100%. And I think it's funny that.
Sorry, what about Adebayor?
Adebayor, he's up there as well.
Ooh.
He's up there as well.
I forgot about Adebayor.
He's up there as well, but I think I think we've Adebayor
too much.
He burnt all bridges there. I think
too much drama.
So, too much drama, and that's a tough one. That's a tough one to take. So, okay, so more questions, right? So, this is a good one from Cameron Beering, and he says, if we secure top 4 this season, what should be our expectations for next season in terms of Premier League and Champions League? So that's a big caveat, right? If we secure top 4. So what would you think represents a good target for next season if we do actually get top 4?
I think we have to stay in the top 4 again next season. We can't just do it once. We have to strengthen so that we're good enough to compete on the league front alongside the Champions League, a good run in the Champions League. I'd say a good run back in the Champions League would be to get to the quarterfinals. I'd accept that as the first season back in. I'd be disappointed with an exit at the group stage. I'd be disappointed with an exit in the second round as well. Honestly speaking, I think I'd hope that if we got there, we could get to a quarterfinal. I'm finishing 4th, but finishing 4th a bit more comfortably, and I say that knowing that the 1 and 2 in terms of City and Liverpool will be strong. Chelsea will strengthen. Tottenham will want to compete. United, with their new coach, will want to compete. There might be 1 or 2 others as well. So who will strengthen? Newcastle will be stronger. I'm not saying that there's someone that we need to worry about now, but they'll be looking to take points off to some of the big boys as well. But yeah, we've got to finish in the top 4 again. Definitely minimum requirement. if we do it this time around, of course.
The biggest challenge next season is managing 3 games a week at the start of the season. That's going to be really tough. You know, Spurs have struggled all season with 3 games a week. Arteta has never really had to manage that, and you know, he's always had, when he has been involved in that, you know, the Champions League, he's always had a Manchester City squad to lean on. And we've all seen how bad Arteta's squad rotation has been this season. So managing the first half of the season is going to be really important. But if we finish top 4, we'll make some good signings this summer. And really, we should be thinking about third. Arteta wants to win the Premier League or compete for the Premier League in 2 seasons' time. You know, when Klopp will probably leave Liverpool, when Guardiola will probably leave Manchester City, there will be an opening for Arsenal. So completely agree, we've got to stay in the top 4. But really, with the turmoil that's going on at Chelsea, the players that they're going to lose this summer, they're not going to have someone with fuck you money coming in. So we are 5 points off Chelsea this season without a striker, with the youngest team in the Premier League. Like, I would like us to be looking at taking third next season, because the biggest problem with the Arsene Wenger era, the latter years, was top 4 was enough. You know, that's all he was aiming for. And I think when you sort of aim for the edge, sometimes you can drop out. But we need to be a consistent team in the Champions League. So if we do get top 4, it's how do we reinforce so we can manage the Champions League and you know, not be a yo-yo team like Spurs were, be a consistent team like we used to be.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, this season was all about, you know, how many points can we put on the board. Without Europe, I thought we needed to aim for 70. I think I said that back in July. And I think for next season, if we do get top 4, we got to aim for, you know, high 70s, low 80s for me, because then I think, you know, that is a very, very solidified top 4 run. And then, you know, you're looking at year-on-year progress. I agree. Champions League, it might be, I think it might be a little bit difficult for us to get far in the competition, just because of, you know, the pot that we might be in and potential group stages that we might get dealt with, because I think we might be in pot 3 or something like that with the Champions League next year, which means that we could get 2 very, very hard teams. But I think, yeah, it would be great to get out of the groups, great to get past around the 16 as well. And I think, you know, quarterfinals would have to be the target. But I'd be probably at this point, depending on what pot we're in, understanding if we didn't get there. But yeah, I think if we get top 4 and around that 70-point mark, then I think we need to aim for, you know, to add another, you know, 7 to 9 points to that next season, whilst maintaining that, you know, 3 game a week consistency, which is the big question mark around Arteta at the moment. So Arsenal Presser, good friend of the pod as well, so he asked a similar question with some additions in the summer. How far do you think we could go in the UCL? So that I think we've answered. And there's a question here from Harry Sutherland, who a big fan of the pod, shared some drinks before the United game as well, plays for Touchline 11s as well. He said, last year I hated the idea of Ruben Neves, but I'm slowly warming to it now. Are there any players you were against signing previously that you now think would suit our team? So I'll go first there, if you guys don't mind. Is that obviously Darwin is one that I've spoken about a little bit. I'm an R about him. I think Osimhen, I'm an R about him as well. And Bissouma is one that when we first got linked to him, I think before we signed Thomas Partey, I wasn't too sure on him. But now I think he probably is my top midfield target if we could sign anyone to come in and play midfield for us. So that's one that I would say. So how about you guys? Is there anyone that you were just like, no, I don't want this guy, but now you're sort of warming to the idea of bringing him in?
Mine would be Ruben Neves. I fell into the trap of just reading, you know, some of those football Twitter accounts with the little, Del Piero pictures in the bio, and I fell for he's just a younger Xhaka. And then I've watched him quite extensively this season because I really enjoy what Bruno Lage brought to Wolves, and I also watched Ruben Neves when I was at the Emirates earlier on in the season. He's a lot more powerful than I thought he was. He's very well built, and he's a really aggressive version of Xhaka. He takes on the more daring passes. He's got a bit of a shot. The only worry that I have with him is I think it'd be quite expensive. I don't think we're going to get a Diego Jota-like price out of Wolves for him, but I think he would elevate our midfield. And Tielemans, I've always been a bit back and forth with, but I think that there are some quite hot rumours that we're going to go for Tielemans. 18 months left on his deal. I think Arsenal like him a lot, and I think he is the sort of quality that we've lacked when Thomas Partey has exited the side. I think Tielemans was Thierry Henry's favourite player when he was managing at Monaco. So I would love to see him at the club, and I didn't really get him, and he hasn't had a great season, but I've been watching some videos of him, and I think he could add a lot to our midfield, especially if we're in the Champions League next season.
And Shabs, how about you?
Not different to those two, to be honest with you. Neves for similar reasons. If you look at him and his physical profile, you kind of, I would say that there's a lot to be desired in terms of just what I like stylistically and what I think we need. I think we need a bit of a powerhouse who can play, but definitely his performances this season. And to be honest with you, I've always liked Neves. Going back to Porto days, I just didn't think he was the right fit for us based on what we have and what we need. But I've completely changed my mind on that, and I would take him. And yeah, I'd say Bissouma as well. Similar reasons to what you gave. I don't think I have much of a different reason behind that, but yeah, I definitely would take Bissouma in a heartbeat.
And the great thing about all of those players that we've just mentioned, they're now players. We don't need squad backup. We need first team players. And I think, you're not going to be disappointed. Almost any of the players that we've spoken about in this whole podcast, they're all additive and they're all now, instead of like last season where it was like, well, I have to give Samuel Lokonga 25 games to see where he's at as a player. These are players that will just slip in and do the job from the off. And that's what we need.
Yeah, 100% agreed. 100% agreed. So final three questions here. So this one's a quick one. You have I hope it's quick. You have the option to sell, to start, bench, or loan these three players, right? It's from Count Draxula. And the players are Saka, ESR, and Martinelli. So that's a tough one, right? So you have to start, bench, and sell those three guys: Saka, ESR, and Martinelli.
Oh, that's cruel.
Very cool. Are we pleading the fifth? We're not answering that one.
I couldn't sell any of them.
Yeah,
that would. I think that would bring down the fan base. They're just too. All of them, like Jurgen Klopp's favorite young player, Smith Rowe, just devastatingly good, and Saka is the star boy. We can't. I'm sorry, we can't sell any of them.
Yeah. I'm pleading the fifth. I don't want to answer that.
Why would you ask us? I don't even understand what you're doing. Reading that question out.
Yeah. I mean, he's asked the question. He listens to the pod. Count Jackson, thanks for the question. But next time, let's keep it upbeat. Yeah, let's keep it upbeat. So this other one from I Really Do Rage. He says, "Would you take Pogba?"
Absolutely. No. I would. I would. On ability, yeah. I think realistically, Shabs, right? So let's pose it like this: would you take Pogba, knowing sort of he's going to cost 400k a week?
What his wages are, his injury record, his age, and everything else that comes around him, right? So it's not just would you take Pogba at his best; is would you take Paul Pogba in his current form, like the current form that he finds himself in, and the wages that he comes with?
Yes, because I'm a sicko. Absolutely. There's still a bit of Wenger about me. No. Honestly, my heart says, yeah, take him. Just take him. just go with it. But my head says, nah, you got to steer clear of not just Pogba. We've got to steer clear of that type of business. Yeah, I don't think that's that goes against what it is that we're building, that type of signing, that profile of signing, that, player ego, and it's not going to marry well with Arteta. I don't think. Look at Oba, look at Ozil, look at Guendouzi. So Pogba's not going to marry. That's not a good marriage.
Yeah. I have to agree. And I do like the player. I think, and the thing is, contrary to sort of what the Man United legends would have you say, I think a lot of the talk around him in France is that he's a good professional, doesn't drink, etc., and all this stuff, doesn't really go partying, family man, married with his kid, and all this stuff. But I just think 29 years old, injury prone, 400k a week. That is, the old Arsenal. I would say it's not the new Arsenal. So even if you could guarantee, unless you could guarantee me that he was going to be fit for the next 4 years of his contract, whatever it's going to be, that he'd sign for 400k and you'd get the very, very best Paul Pogba for those 4 years. It's something that I'm not interested in at all. I would love him to go to somewhere like Man City and sort of like really show the haters something, but I don't want to take that risk at us at this fledgling period in our development, personally.
Yeah, he's what, 3.7 Martinelli's a week in wages, 3.7 Smith Rowe's. Actually, and I think he's more like 4.2 Smith Rowe's and 3.7 Saka's. We don't need that baggage. He's won everything. He mails it in too often. He's injured all the time. And Aubameyang went to Barcelona and everyone's like, look, he's revitalized. Who's talking about Aubameyang right now? I just think when players get to 29, especially if they've won the World Cup, the Champions League, like, why are they going to want to come and play for a 38-year-old manager? Then they don't care. They don't want to learn new things. I think that Barcelona or Madrid will take the punt on him and spend the money because that's just what they do. They need that sort of profile. But I think Arsenal need young, hungry, and dynamic. We made our mistakes with older players, with Willian signing Ozil again, signing Aubameyang again. Like, that's finished business, I think, for us.
Yeah. And very last question here. Let me just find this question. One to close on, right? And where's it gone now? Just want to get there at. So the question is, do we make Champions League? Simple as that.
Yeah.
Do you think we make Champions League?
Yes.
We've got to believe.
We've got to believe. I'm going to say yes.
Believe.
I'm going to say yes as well. I'm going to say yes.
But it won't be 5 straight wins. And I think that's what Arsenal fans have got to be. You've got to be prepared that we're going to bleed at West Ham, at Leeds, at Newcastle, Everton. There's going to be pain and there's going to be suffering. It's not going to be 5 straight wins, but also Spurs aren't going to win 5 straight games either. So it's like we get too much panic in the system immediately because we assume that Conte is going to go on a 5-game run, and I just don't think it will happen like that.
Yeah, I can't find the person who asked me that, but I definitely saw that question. So apologies to you, but thank you, Pete, very much for coming on the podcast. I've very much enjoyed this discussion. I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed hearing all of your in-depth opinions about various Arsenal topics.
Thank you. I love all the content that you do. I love seeing the little viral tweets that ping off every now and then. Super provocative. It's great to see this go from strength to strength, and we'll have to do a reverse crossover with the Arsenal opinion. We'd love to have you on again.
Of course, man. Of course, we'd be happy to jump on any time. And Shabs, thanks for joining me, my man. And to the listeners, thank you everyone that's joined and watched this live. As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, make sure you drop a like on the video and make sure you leave some comments, 5-star reviews, all of that good stuff. And everyone listening on Spotify, Apple podcasts, make sure you do the necessary and needful as well. So thanks, everyone. And we will catch you on the flip side after the away game at West Ham, which is hopefully another 3 points in the bag and 3 points closer to finally getting Tuesday and Wednesday night football back at the Emirates. Peace.
Peace.